He is a stand-up comic and actor who's been earning a living from the stage since 1981, just 3 months after his first set. He is one of the original outlaws of comedy with the one and only Sam Kinison. He's worked with Drew Carey, Robin Williams, Dana Carvey, Rob Schneider, Bobcat Goldthwait, and Bill Hicks, the Reverend Bill Hicks, among many other greats. From Paris, France to LA's Comedy Store and the Improv, a slew of variety shows, a Showtime special, and a great number of television and film appearances, including the reason that brings us together today, Howard the Duck. Steven Kravitz, thank you very much for taking the time to talk to us today.
Hey, thanks for having me. How did you dig up Howard the Duck?
I mean, even speaking of saying him asking, how do we dig it up? It was pretty much dug in the grave for so long. Only the 80s people could have revived it. So I'm glad we were here to talk about it. And of course, we will get into that. Now, you went to the University of Massachusetts for performing arts, where
That's correct.
You were a part of, if I'm not mistaken, a trio with a monthly 1-hour show on NPR. So can you tell us about what attracted you to comedy and what that time of your life was like? And if I'm not mistaken, what eventually led you to Paris?
Well, I've always loved comedy. Groucho Marx was my biggest influence. You know what I mean? I just loved his wit. I loved the Marx Brothers. And I started performing in high school. I performed in the parks as a clown. And I had no idea what I was doing, but I did an hour anyway, you know, for kids. And that was a lot of fun. So that drew me to comedy. And then I got drawn into the theater my freshman year of college. I did One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and then I had to lead in a thing called Thieves Carnival. And then I moved on from there, and I did Adam and Eve. I played Adam. And UMass, I hooked up with two other guys, Alan Silberberg and Joe Bailey. We were the Mashed Potatoes, original comedy, funny stuff. And we did live shows, and we did radio shows. And that was a peak in my career. That was tons of fun. We had a pretty large following on the UMass campus, plus our radio show, which got a lot of attention. And then I started researching physical comedy because I wanted to train my body as well as my voice. Do you know what I mean? And I felt like they weren't putting enough emphasis on the body. So what I did was I did some research, and I found out everybody in this country who had studied physical comedy had studied with one of two people, Jacques Lecoq or Etienne Decroux, and that was in Paris, France. And you weren't allowed to study with both of these teachers at the same time. They were masters, but I studied with both of them, which meant I could have no friends, because if either school found out, I would have been kicked out of both of them. But it didn't stop me, you know what I mean? And then when I came back to the States, in 1980, 81, I did a set at the Comedy Cellar in Boston. And they said, you know, we're an odd group of humans, but you're odder than all of us. So why don't you go to San Francisco? So I did. And I got on stage March 3rd, 1981, and I was earning my living by June of 1981. It wasn't that I was a great stand-up. It's just I had great stage presence and stage awareness. You know what I mean? And that made up a lot for my lack of skill as a stand-up at that point, which grew and grew and grew. I mean, I would do 5 shows a night. You know what I mean? I would just go from one open mic to another, to another, to another, every night. I can remember John Cantu, who ran the Holy City Zoo, once asking, who wants to do a set besides Kravitz?
I'm listening to you say all of that, but what I'm hearing is this all goes back to those times where you're performing those 1-hour shows in the park when you're dressed up as a clown, because you take something from each one of those things. And like you say, you studied with the two guys abroad, which you weren't supposed to do. But like you say, now you're being brought on for your stage presence. So as you just added to the layers that you already had, is what it sounds like.
Right. Exactly. And you know, there's nothing more pure than a microphone, and you have nothing but your wit. It's an empty stage that you have to fill up, and you have to, you know, like I learned early to, when somebody said, you know, good set, whether I felt about it, how I felt about it or not, I would always say, thank you, and I'm glad you enjoyed it, and leave it at that. You know, I didn't say, well, you know, I booted this joke, or I I was off on that joke or whatever, I would just say, thank you, I'm glad you enjoyed it, and leave it there. And then things progressed, and I ended up with the Outlaws. And we played Madison Square Garden. We played the main room at Caesars. We played the Dunes Hotel when it was still in existence. We did 18 shows in 1 week. We did 5 on Saturday. And by the 5th show, I was a little under the weather, let's say. I was a little toasty. And I told the same joke 3 times in one set. And I couldn't figure out why it wasn't getting a laugh. It just stumped me. You know, I was completely baffled by it until later somebody pointed out, well, you told that joke 3 times. So.
Well, it's because you didn't laugh the first 2 times.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I have no idea why or what was going on in my head, though, you know, I was certainly under the influence.
I've been on stage a few times, and it's weird what happens, how you can kind of it's kind of like blacking out, and you come off the stage, you're like, what the hell just happened up there?
Well, that's because if you like that, that's because you're absolutely in the moment. If you're in the moment, you know, nothing can go wrong. Everything is right if you're in the moment. The trouble is, once you realize you're in the moment, you're not in the moment anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. It's interesting when you, I wonder if this was your experience with being a clown. It's like my mom was a professional clown for a good portion of my younger years. And it's funny that people always say like, oh, clowning around, like not being serious. But from, at least from my experience with her, it's like it's a very serious craft to it. And like she had to go to school and be trained, and there's an etiquette, and you never refer to yourself when you're not in makeup, or you're never to be half seen or anything like that.
Right.
Was that your experience? Like it being
my experiences was there was no makeup, just the red nose. And when you think about it, you're actually a clown when you're doing stand-up. You're just not wearing any makeup or a nose. You know, I mean, it's the same thing. You're just entertaining and making people happy and making people laugh. So,
like you said, in 1981 is when you did your first stand-up set. You never looked back, and I think that's awesome. I think, you know, a big key to success a lot of the times is more so relentless consistency than it is talent, and then the talent eventually catches up.
Right. I was driven. I was absolutely driven.
That's what I was going to say. It sounded like your path was pretty intentional when you got on stage that first night. It didn't seem like you were just trying something. It seems like you had some kind of goal in mind that this was going to be the thing that you did. Right.
I had tunnel vision. I mean, I was totally into it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Absolutely. That's why I have to be very careful about something that I'm willing to become excited about, because once something bites me, it swallows me whole.
Right. I agree.
The list of extraordinary talents that you've worked with, we named at the top of the intro, is just it's baffling. It's absolutely incredible. I could pry you for an entire day for information on everybody that you've worked with, but because we're limited on time, I'm gonna restrict ourselves to just 3 of the people that you've worked with. And if you don't mind just sharing a memory of, if there's a memory that stands out with them or a particular story, Kinnison. I mean, the madman himself.
I can tell you a story about how I became a paid regular at the Comedy Store. I never showcased for Mitzi. Never. What happened was the first night I was at the Comedy Store, I was walking out on the back patio, and Kinnison came up to me and said, "Kravitz, it's the angel of death." You know, and then Robin came up behind me and he said, "Kravitz, you're still alive." And after that, I was a paid regular.
Wow, that's to Kinnison and Robin Williams in the same story.
That's crazy.
What a
right. Well, they were both good friends.
Yeah, I mean,
they were friends first. Do you know what I mean?
Sure.
I mean, Robin, when I was at the Holy City Zoo, Robin was, you know, still he was doing Mork and Mindy, but he was still coming back to stand-up. So in a sense, he made it possible for us to earn a living as a stand-up. What's his name? From the 50s. Died of a heroin overdose.
Belushi. No, not the one thinking about
no.
that. No, that's the 80s. I'm sorry. I went no, the 50s.
Is it
Stand-up comic. Lenny Bruce.
Lenny Bruce.
Oh, Lenny Bruce.
Lenny Bruce made it possible for us to say what we say on stage without restriction. And Robin made it possible for us to earn a living. He opened up the whole scene. You know, and because he was so popular in Mork and Mindy, but he kept saying, I'm a stand-up. You know, that's what I do. That's my favorite thing. So he brought a lot of attention to us up-and-comers, you know, and internally grateful for that. I'll tell you a movie story. First of all, Howard the Duck was my first film, and I don't really acknowledge it. I acknowledge Sudden Impact as my first film with Clint Eastwood, because he got me my SAG card. He got me my union card. And the other thing is, you know, we're on the set, we're on location, and, you know, they feed you while you're on the set. But afterwards, you have to feed yourself. And I got like, you know, 3 nickels, I'm hoping to make a quarter. I got no money. So I'm eating food and I'm stealing food. And I'm eating food and I'm stealing food. And I feel a paw, not a hand, a paw on my shoulder. And I look up and it's Eastwood. And I'm thinking, I've just ended my career before I said my first line. And he says to me, you don't have to steal it, Steven. You can have it. And then he takes out $50 and he gives it to me. And he says, make sure you eat while you're here. And he came up to me at every meal and he said, have you had enough to eat? And do you need, how you set for money? I mean, amazing, right? That's Clint Eastwood.
He keeps getting cooler.
Dirty hair.
Remember,
has a heart.
No action. Just, have you heard the story that he doesn't even say action? He'll just be directed and be like, and before you know it, you're in the scene with him.
Well, he says a minute for the actors. So there's a dead silence and there's a minute for the actors, and then he does say action.
Oh, okay.
I just saw
action.
Okay.
Just saw a preview for his new movie coming out. I can't remember what it's called, something Macho, but it looks really good. It looks like he knows that he's rounding the corner towards the end of his legacy. And this movie looks like it's like his opus. It sums everything up. He's such a brilliant, actor, director, everything. He's one of the greats.
Except for his politics.
Yeah, that chair bit was pretty funny, but the context of it was lost.
Right.
No, we don't talk politics on set.
No.
Yeah,
we just go. I agree.
Before we move on, I have to ask about Bill Hicks, because he's one of my favorite comedians. I mean, he's currently probably doing somersaults in his grave at what's going on in reality right now.
Right.
I wish that he was around to give his commentary on just life right now. He'd probably just dig himself a hole and hide in it if he was alive today. But
he paid me a pretty great compliment. We did a show together in Santa Monica, California. And after the show, he came up to me and he said, you're a real comic. And that meant a lot to me, coming from Bill Hicks.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, that was just mind-blowing.
It's always good to hear stuff like that from people you admire, and then they know that you're actually working. That is always good.
Right. And that you're competent in what you do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you don't really need any validation beyond that. It's like, the audience didn't like my set tonight. Bill Hicks said I'm a comic.
Right. So I guess I'm in the club.
Yeah.
Now, let me ask you this. You were kind of touching on this earlier, but I wanted to dive a little bit more into it. Now, Durden's a fan of Joe Rogan's podcast, and we both, of course, grew up on Pauly Shore. So we're no stranger to what you mentioned before, the lure of Mitzi Shore's Comedy Store. Now, you performed all over.
I'm sorry. I intentionally worded that question because I was hoping you would fumble it. So I made it like a Dr. Seuss.
Listen, I don't fumble. Okay. The game's on. I don't fumble. Put me in, coach. So you performed all over. What is it about the Comedy Store that sets it apart and makes it such a sacred place for comedians? Because I've heard Dave Chappelle and other comedians say when they're working on something, they go back to the Comedy Store and get it right before they go. So talk to us about that.
Well, the Comedy Store gives you the freedom, all the freedom in the world to experiment. And once you were a paid regular, you know, you could experiment, and it was a home. It was a family. You know what I mean? It was so many talented comics. You know, so many talented comics, and it was just an honor to be a part of them. You know, I mean, I can't put it in words how great it was. It was just a time where talent just flourished. Do you know what I mean? It was like one comic after the next was just as good as, you know, everybody was in their A game. And that's where you went to try out new material. That's where you went to just hang out with your friends and family, because they became a family. You know what I mean? And many a night, I would go on second or last, and Kinnison would go on last, or I would go on last, and Kinnison would go on second or last. And we worked together up in San Francisco before I moved down to LA. You know, so I knew Sam pretty well, and I knew Robin from San Francisco also. So that was pretty neat. That was a pretty good, you know, I had I had just finished, was a finalist in the San Francisco comedy competition in '85. And in those years, that was the only comedy competition in the country, in North America. So I came in fourth, which was pretty cool. And after that, I packed up and I moved to LA, and I went right on stage at the Comedy Store. Was a paid regular right out of the gate. Never showcased for Mitzi. I may be the only one who never showcased for Mitzi.
I saw like Ellen DeGeneres came ahead or something like that, right?
Sinbad won. Ellen DeGeneres came in second. A guy named Evan Davis came in third. I came in fourth, and Stephen Pearl came in fifth.
Did you ever have any experience with Ellen DeGeneres?
You know, I just met her during that competition, and she was cordial. She was very nice. You know, okay. I mean, she was playing in another league than the rest of us. She was, you know, she was going places. I mean, Sinbad did all right for a while, but Ellen had, you know, she sustained, you know, popularity for what, decades.
Yeah. She always rubbed me the wrong way for some reason. I don't know. I felt like nobody could be that nice. And I was so happy when that hashtag happened in like early 2020, where people just started sharing stories about bad experiences with Ellen DeGeneres.
Right, like she's some sort of monster backstage.
Yeah, that's the way they made it out. Yeah. Like, yes, finally the world sees her the way
Helen. It wasn't no longer Ellen, it was Helen.
Yeah, Helen DeGeneres. Yeah, I mean, my wife loves her. I think that's why I don't. But I heard at the Comedy Store, like, as great as what happens on the stage is, the magic really happens like behind the store or outside in the back.
Oh yeah.
You know, I couldn't imagine.
There was a real tight-knit community in San Francisco also, where, like, you know, I may sit down and say, you know, this joke's not working for me. Maybe it'll do better in your act. Why don't you try it? You know,
that's awesome.
Because, you know, and if somebody said to that person, that's Kravitz's joke, I would say, no, I gave them permission to use it. Because stealing is the ultimate crime in stand-up comedy. If you're known for stealing material, you don't work. We police our own.
Mencina? Was it Mencina?
Yeah, where's Carlos Mencina? He's slowly crawling back up, which that's a complicated story from what I've heard on both ends. Yeah.
Right. Not a big fan of Carlos.
I know Mind of Mencia, he's a good thing he got canceled for stealing jokes, because Mind of Mencia would have got him canceled just on the content alone. That shit would not fly in 2021.
No. Right.
So I noticed when I was doing the research on you were in recovery comedy, and if you wouldn't mind sharing your story about that, because personally, we're both creators, and it's weird when you're an artist to any degree. It's almost like you need a 13th step to get out of addiction, because there's this, it like becomes a part of your persona. Like when I go outside to have when I talk on the phone or I drive, that's like my cue. I need to have a cigarette. When I sit down to write or edit something, it's like, that's my cue to do this vice that I've chosen or that vice. And it's almost, it becomes so like a part of it. And especially when you're a stand-up comedian, I've seen it with a lot of stand-up comedians where it becomes a part of their persona in general that they project to the public.
Right.
So
I was definitely the junkie comic. You know, I did very hard drugs for a long time. Now I'm 16 years clean and sober,
Congratulations.
you know, which is a long time to go without a drink.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Weed is my drug of choice, and I could not imagine. But it's my vice of choice, and the first few days are incredible. I applaud anybody that, because I have a very addictive personality, so anybody that can kick a habit is just amazing to me. The strength. How did you navigate that with your audience, or maybe what you projected onto your audience as far as what they expected?
Well, I found that near the end of my using, you know, I was just a mess. I was a mess, and I found that after I got clean, that if you're engaging the audience and you're clear-headed, you do a much better job, because you can react immediately. You know, you're not all sluggish or all doped up or all drunk, or, you know, just it got to the point where it was interfering with my stand-up. So I was able to get clean in 2005, you know, but I had been trying to get clean for 20 years before that. So I'd be bouncing in and out of rehabs and, you know, going to jail and all sorts of bad stuff. You know, it's not a good life. I don't recommend it. And a lot of heroin addicts don't last as long as I have. You know, they tend to have a pretty low mortality rate. You know, they go in the 20s and 30s. So,
I commend you on that. Let me ask you this, because like you said, you've been trying to get clean. I know it's not one of the questions we have, but since you opened it up, let me ask you this. Is that really what really made you turn it around, when it was really affecting with your career and you had to make a decision, what's more important, my habit or my craft? Is that what really ultimately? Okay.
I also had to come to the realization that if I didn't do something, I was going to die. Mm-hmm. Near the end, it was that bad. You know, I had done a TV series where I had a lead, which was very cool. And I was so messed up at the time, my work is just unwatchable. It's just, I mean, I can't watch it. Then again, you know, the whole show is unwatchable. It was called Black Scorpion, and it was on Sci-Fi for a year. We did 22 episodes.
Black Scorpion. I thought I noticed that in your credits, where it looked like something that would have been on Cinemax almost from the cover of it. Am I thinking of the right?
I think you're thinking about something else.
Well, we did two films first. We did Black Scorpion 1 and Black Scorpion 2. Then we did Black Scorpion the series. And in the first one, I had a small part. I was a day player. And excuse me, I worked with the director in other films, and he kind of let me go a little bit. And in the second film, I was a lead. So, and then I was one of two characters who were carried over from the film into the series. So we did, like I said, we shot from March all the way to April. I mean, all the way to December. We shot from March to December. And we had August off. In August, my disease got way out of control. My habit got huge, you know, and I wasn't really able to do the job. And that's one of the big regrets. And that was also one of the big wake-up calls for me, that I just couldn't work that way anymore. Now, I've never done a film where I was loaded, but I did do that series. Very loaded.
A little bit of drugs would have probably helped with Howard the Duck.
Yeah.
But
that's how I got made.
Addiction is, I mean, I think a lot of people get into something like naively thinking that they can control it. Like, even as something as smoking cigarettes, I always said when I started smoking, because everybody, you know what people say, like, just don't start and then you won't have to worry about quitting. Just never pick them up. And I'm like, I'll stop when I stop enjoying them. It's not that easy. I haven't enjoyed a cigarette in 10 years. And even as I'm saying cigarettes, it's triggering something in my brain. I want to go outside and have a cigarette. It's like,
is that right?
Yeah, it's habits. Like I don't care how much willpower you have. Habits are a challenge to kick to one degree or another, and it's God, kids out there, just don't start.
There you
Just
go.
don't start, and then you don't have to stop.
Right, which is easier said than done. I mean, I was into being a junkie at one point. I dug the the aura of being a junkie. You know what I mean? I mean, everybody else was like snorting coke. It was weird. Like you could go backstage and there'd be an 8-ball of coke on the mirror, and nobody would bat an eye. But you do this much heroin, and you're a drug addict.
That's those are the 80s, right?
Yeah, 80s, early 90s. Oh, okay. We had a band called the Pete Best Band. Now, do you know who Pete Best was?
I don't. Do you?
No.
Pete Best was the drummer for the Beatles before they fired him for Ringo, like a week before they made it. So we started the Pete Best Band, and we had 4 drummers, and that was kind of the joke, you know. And nobody seemed to get it. And we had Ted Nugent and Sam, who can play guitar like nobody's business, and Carl LeBeau, and we had Corey Feldman's dad on bass. So that was that was at the Universal Amphitheater where we did an Outlaws show also.
Oh man, have you heard Corey Feldman's new album or not?
No.
Newish. Not many people like it, but I'm a legitimate fan of it. That's Ascension is
and so let me ask you, it was a good. I'm glad, not necessarily when it comes to how bad it can go. Like you say, it was a different time back then. People were using drugs, and I liken it to the time we are in now. I want to ask this for aspiring comedians. What advice would you give them? And I'm going to put a twist on that, especially with the avenues they have to travel now versus what you grew up in, the time when you guys were there.
Well, when I started doing stand-up in San Francisco, there was 5 full-time comedy clubs within the city limits. So I could do 5 sets a night, you know, Sunday through Thursday. And then once I progressed further, I could do Friday and Saturday. But the best advice I would give to a young comic is get as much stage time as you can. Do every. I did a show on the countertop in a comic book store. You know what I mean? Wherever you can get stage, get it. Wherever you can perform your art and learn your craft and improve on your craft, take every opportunity. You know, and don't let anybody discourage you. You know, I mean, they may not get you today, but they may get you tomorrow.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah, that's great advice. Now we usually ask our guests about their favorite film in different various forms of questions, but with you, we altered the question a little bit. I'm curious if when you get to heaven, who is?
He just said he's an atheist. What's going on, man?
From one atheist to another, humor this hypothetical. When you get to heaven,
right? If I get to heaven.
Oh, this is a hypothetical. You're going to heaven. We're both going to
really?
be.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yes. Who's the first comedy set that you're going to check out?
I'm going to go meet Groucho.
Okay.
I'm going to go meet Groucho.
I thought he was going to say Carlin. I was going to write it down. I thought he was going to say Carlin.
Oh, you
really?
I love Carlin.
Yeah, Carlin's another one that'd be. I mean, I'm sure Carlin and Hicks are down there looking up right now.
There you go.
Yeah.
Right. And Robin's down up there looking down on us.
Yeah.
Yes.
God, that was now like with Kinnison and Hicks even, it was kind of like, okay, that was the life you were living. I could see that. Robin Williams really took me by surprise with he played, you can kind of see that he was channeling something real in his movies when he would Mrs. Doubtfire, when he's losing his kids and he's standing in the courtroom. He conveyed sadness so well. And to know that kind of turmoil was, it was coming from a real place inside is, it adds to how heartbreaking it is when somebody spent their whole life making you so happy to know
Right.
that they were struggling with something like that on the inside.
Man.
Well, what I heard was first he had a mild heart attack and they put him on medication that caused depression and suicidal thoughts. And then I heard he was diagnosed with Parkinson's. And, you know, Michael J. Fox has Parkinson's, but you can sit him in a chair at a desk and he can recite his lines, whereas Robert would like to climb over the desk and under the desk and through the desk and, you know, make all sorts of, you know, innuendos about the desk. And I think he didn't want to deteriorate in front of the world. I think that was the impetus for it. But I could be wrong. This is all just speculation on my part.
Yeah, that's the other thing that just adds to the tragedy of it, is that we're left in the mystery of, and these days we're so accustomed to knowing everything about everything. When something isn't black and white for us, it's just, it only adds to it.
Like I keep wondering, how did you hunt me down with Howard the Duck? That still just baffles me.
Well, we go deep to find our guests. We love talk. We are personally interested in the people that make the movie that most people don't typically think about. Is every single cog in the wheel that is a film production makes the whole thing turn. And it's like where are they now? It's so interesting it's like a morbid curiosity. What's this dude doing now?
I took a different look at it. I want to know, how was he thinking when he got that email? Like, what the fuck? Are you kidding me? Out of all the shit I've done, this is what
right.
in
Exactly.
2021, it's some bullshit.
Like I said, it's just an excuse to bring us together with interesting people. And 10% of the interview is Howard the Duck, but most of it is just, we just want to know who these people are out there, who you are, what you're doing.
You know, that's like I did Women in Red with Gene Wilder. And I was on the set for 4 days and they never got to me. I never got in front of the camera, but my name is in the credits. So I keep getting residual checks.
That's the best actor in the world there.
Yeah, how do you like that? I didn't work and I got paid.
Oh man, the Republicans were fuming right now.
Don't tell them that loud.
And then I work with Don Johnson and Cheech Martin on Nash Bridges. Do you know the show?
Yes.
Yeah, I did that show, I think 6 or 8 times. And that was a lot of fun. Don Johnson could be a bit of a butthead, I can tell you that. Like one day on the set, you know, we got this long scene and, you know, a steady cam and the whole deal. And he keeps accusing me of jumping lines and padding my lines. And I'm looking at the script and I'm doing it verbatim. And he looks at his script and he realizes that he was wrong. And finally, after he jumped on me the whole time, we're going up the stairs. It's a long, long shot. We're going up the stairs and I boot a line. And I am so frustrated at this point. I go, fuck this. Fuck everybody, fuck you, I'm done. I throw the script, I walk away. And then Don comes up to me and puts his arm around me and says, you know, come on, we can do this. We can do this. Come on now, man. And then we got it in the next shot. We nailed it.
Man.
He's a class act. We love him in Django Unchained. He's a Freeman.
He's a Freeman now.
Oh, you want me to treat her like the white folk? No. What was his like? I know stand-up comedy that relies on that human-to-human interaction.
Right.
I know, you're in Massachusetts, right? So thankfully you're not in New York or California, because I heard it's crazy right there now for comedians. But what has the pandemic been like for you as a stand-up comic? How have you navigated that?
Well, the last set I did was February 2020. So I haven't been on stage. This is the longest hiatus I've ever had. Do you know what I mean? And I've never gone more than like a couple of days without doing a set.
How's that been?
Frustrating at best. You know what I mean? I mean, I would love to get back to it. It's time to go back to work, and now I just have to find venues.
Mm-hmm. Have you considered the because now we're coming into the second strain? Have Have you considered like Zoom shows or online things or anything like that?
I really need that immediate audience reaction. I don't think I would be comfortable doing Zoom shows. I just think it would be too weird. It'd be like being on the Jetsons.
Still waiting on those flying cars.
Yeah.
All right, let me ask you this. 2 years after you began your career as a stand-up comic, you got into acting. Now, of course, you said your first film was Howard the Duck, but of course, you brought up Sudden Impact from Clint Eastwood. Let me ask you, when you played Hawkins. So let me ask you this. What you were a comedian and still are, and then you're now into acting. What led you to pursue acting? And furthermore, just like you said with Robin, you always come back to the comedy as it seems like you've done.
Right. No, I love acting. Acting was absolutely my first love and a driving force to university and afterward. I'll tell you, the first play I ever auditioned for was Jesus Christ Superstar. Now
everything's all right. Yes.
Right. It's a musical. It's a musical. And I make Dylan look operatic. Do you know what I mean? I have absolutely no singing voice at all. So I go into the audition and I'm shaking so hard from the script. I get a paper cut the length of my palm from the script. And basically I didn't get the part because I can't sing. You know, I did Jesus Christ. No. What film did I do? Not a stage show. I did Godspell. And I played John the Baptist Judas. And I'm supposed to enter from the back of the house singing a cappella, prepare to eat the way of the Lord. And the music director had to stand next to me and hum the note into my head so I could at least I'm supposed to do 2 verses, but they cut it to 1. And then the cast joins in on me because me singing alone, walking down the aisle of an auditorium is not what you'd call highbrow comedy. I mean, it was just terrible. Just terrible.
I've always often wondered with those shows, it's more so like they want 90% singer and 10% actor. It seems like it's crazy. Yeah.
But I in Godspell, I had the largest acting part because I played John the Baptist Judas. So it's got more of an, there's the ensemble sings where I just, lip sync because I don't want to ruin the harmonies.
Tomato, banana. Or no, it's watermelon.
Yeah, I think that's been changed though. I think they changed that a few years ago.
Oh yeah.
But you go and keep using that.
No.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm not 6 o'clock, man. You can do.
All right, let's abruptly segue straight into it. Is 1986. You are just a normal guy. You're making out with your girlfriend in a dark alley, as we did in 1986. When next thing you know, you are fighting off a duck from outer space with a for rent sign. Of course, we are referring to Howard the Duck.
Really quick, I know we're going into. I'm sorry, I have to say this. I don't know if you can see this. We've been talking about Robin so much. This is Robin right here from Death to Smoochie.
Oh, really?
This is we got him on our backdrop. We love Robin. I meant to show you that when we were talking about him. So
Rainbow Randolph.
Let me tell you something about Rob. Robin was the kindest, most generous guy I've ever met. He was generous with his time, with the fans. If they wanted pictures, he took pictures. If they wanted autographs, he did autographs. He was just an outstanding human being, besides being one of the funniest human beings ever to live. And his acting talent goes without saying.
Yeah, he was
just an immense talent.
Yeah, I remember the first time I saw him on stage, not in person, but one of his. I was late to his stand-up. I was Robin on Broadway.
Okay.
And I was like, oh my God, this is the genie. This is Mrs. Doubtfire.
Oh, no, that's who he truly was on stage. That's
and he was like a machine gun. Like the energy was like I'd have to take his Xanax just to watch him because it was
he is the man. I miss him, man. I'm sorry to take you off of that. I'm saying it's Robin. We can always take time for Robin.
That was good.
Yeah.
I didn't bring up Flubber.
How did you end up getting the role in Howard the Duck?
I wish I could answer that truthfully, but I have no idea. Not a clue. I don't remember auditioning. The only thing I remember, it was a night shoot, and I got to make out with a very pretty girl.
Yeah.
She's a very pretty girl. All right, so let me ask you this. Now we've heard literally it was a wild production. So what was your experience like other than the making out that you can remember on set? Any experience whatsoever?
All I remember is shooting my scene basically and being very anxious because it was my first speaking role. It was my first role. You know what I mean? And I was lucky enough to get a speaking part, but it didn't translate into getting a SAG card or anything. I went Taft-Hartley on that, and then a sudden impact. You know, Eastwood made sure I had lines, and then I got my SAG card. I mean, he was instrumental, and my agent didn't want to send me out for the part, and I insisted. And everybody in the waiting room is dressed like thugs. You know, they're all dressed like in their tough guy outfits, and I'm just wearing my regular clothes. You know, which basically was the same thing they were wearing. And I got the part, and it was funny. I got to meet a guy named Fritz Mann, who did a lot of executive producing for Eastwood's films. And I was talking to him about stunts because he came from a stunt background. And I said, how do you know about stunts? He said, if I can't do a stunt twice, I won't do it once.
Okay.
That's a good, yeah.
That's good. I like it.
Isn't that something?
That's that. So pretty much, if something is too dangerous or not replicatable, it's not worth even. Yeah, you're always going to need to take two.
Right.
Now, and let me ask you this as well, because you brought this up, and a lot of aspiring actors don't know this. Could you tell them the difference between having and not having that SAG card and the difference it makes?
Well, without a SAG card, you can't really do a SAG film unless somebody takes you on and decides they're going to get you the SAG card. Now, that was back in the 80s. Now I believe you can buy a SAG card.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to earn it. You don't have
we
to
don't want your
earn
talent.
it.
We just want your money. We don't want your talent. Give us your money.
Sorry, the only thing you can't buy is happiness.
Now, switching it up here, what was it like working with William Hayek? What was that like to really work? Well, I knew I was going to do that. I knew. Then why'd you put his name there? That's his name. What was it like working with Willard Hyatt?
It was enjoyable. He just basically, showed me what he wanted. I gave it to him, and he gave me some high praise, and that was the end of that. I mean, it was real quick. It was an experience that was fulfilling. It was my first chance to step out of stand-up and into acting on an international level. So that was very exciting in itself. You know what I mean?
Yes. And the reason why I asked that question, why he wrote it, was because of the fact that I know what it was like. My first time on a true production was, I don't know if you've ever heard of the film. It's Lonely Hearts with John Travolta. It was filmed here in Jacksonville, Florida, 15 years ago. And I just remember coming on set like, oh man, this is the big time now. Like you got a job to do. Like you said, you were shaking and you cut your hand. Like I am so nervous, but like you say, once the camera comes on, I black out. I'm in the moment, and I can't tell you what the hell happened. Right.
That's like I remember doing a Pepsi commercial, and I was supposed to spray mustard on this woman, and I sprayed her really good, and apparently that was too much. And I'm thinking, well, you asked me to do it. Why is it too much? I mean, shouldn't I just be allowed to go?
Show me the professional mustard sprayer. Come on, show me how you want it done. Like,
right.
Should have been
bring
happy.
in the mustard wrangler.
At least it wasn't Grey Poupon.
Goodness grief, sir.
What was it like working with? So I mean, you have of course the human co-star that you're making out with, but then, when you are like all that you guys do is you're making out. That's like the beginning and end of your interaction.
Oh, and I slipped it in the tongue. Thank you very much.
There you go.
Oh, she got a
little side note there.
Yes, I like it.
Is Me Tooing before Me Too.
No, just him. It's called hashtag just him.
Yeah,
it was basically a reaction, to Howard the Duck breaking through. I mean, mine was just it was a natural reaction to it, where I just say, what the fuck? I believe I just say, what the?
Yeah.
And they leave out fuck.
What is the, like, do you guys, did you guys like meet prior or anything, or is it just like, all right, come on set, action, and you're making out, or what?
Right.
Like, is that awkward, or do you guys have like a friendly back and forth beforehand?
Well, at that point, I had no experience, so I didn't know what to expect. You know what I mean? I was just told what they wanted from me, and I gave it to them. You know, and that's the other thing with Eastwood. Eastwood only does 2 takes per scene, and then he'll just go print the second one or print the first one. He just knows, but he only shoots it twice, and he gets the most out of his actors. And like I said, you know, you do rehearsal, and then you get a minute for the actors where there's just the silence, and then you do the scene. And the difference between, like, I did a Eric Estrada film. Remember Eric Estrada?
Mm-hmm.
And for the Eastwood film, you know, for lunch, it was like shark steak, filet mignon, you know, just a 5-star buffet. And with Eric Estrada, we were shooting at a racetrack, and you got a coupon for 2 hot dogs at the racetrack stand. That was lunch.
Thanks, Eric.
I can't talk. Craft services on our films is usually like a bag of those variety chips, some honey buns.
Budget was a little bit bigger than yours.
A little bit.
Just a little bit. Let me ask you this here. Now, the film Howard the Duck got mixed reviews. Some loathed it, and actually some loved it. When you saw it for the first time, what was your reaction?
I didn't care for it.
Okay.
I didn't care. I didn't hate it. I just didn't care for it. I thought they didn't portray Howard the Duck in the light that I'd known him from the comic. I'm a big comic book fan. You know, yes. I collected comic books for years. My first ex-wife had me get rid of my first collection, and my second ex-wife had me get rid of my second collection.
How's the third collection going?
I just started it again. I just started going back to the comic books.
How much would those things be worth, man, nowadays? The ones you got rid of? I'm asking because, I mean, shit. That's man, that's tough, man.
They would have been worth a lot of money now because they were all in pristine condition. You know, I had them in plastic with a cardboard, and I had them in boxes. I had them in alphabetical order. I had them by genre. You know, you name it, I had it all categorized, and I had to just sell it. I mean, that's life. You know, what can you do? Sometimes you gotta grow up.
Yeah. Not according to Toys R Us.
Not according to. Yeah. That man. Yeah. See, our first interaction with Howard the Duck, it came out when we were 3 years old. I think I saw it when I was like 6 or 7. My introduction to Howard the Duck was the film, not the comic. So it holds a special place in our hearts as far as like, we look back at it fondly. But I have to say, when we recently went back and rewatched it as adults in preparation for these interviews, it's rough around the edges.
It leaves a little bit black.
It didn't hold up, huh? It didn't hold up with time.
I mean, it's become a cult classic, and for good reason, because it does manage to transcend like terrible all the way around to being almost great again. It's like one of those things where you can, like, some movies are like they hurt to watch because they're just bad and not entertaining. Howard the Duck is at least extremely entertaining, and you could tell they shot for the fences on it.
It had like a Toxic Avenger feel to it for me when I went to watch this.
Yes.
Let me ask you this, because you said you were into comic books, so I'm just assuming here that you were into the Marvel films. How did it feel to see Howard the Screen get his respect paid in Avengers Endgame?
Yeah, how about that, huh? He had a little cameo there.
Just a little cameo. I was like, I rewatched that scene 30 times. Like, look at little Howard. After all these years, he finally made it.
That was a great cameo for him. That was
great cameo.
That set up the stage for them to do a reboot of Howard the Duck.
Yes, and and that's a perfect segue into the next question. And oh man, I didn't even think about this when I wrote the questions, but so if I'll get into my second part of this question that just came into my head, but being a comic book fan, if they were to remake Howard the Duck today, what should be done differently? What do you think should stay the same? And the part that just came to me was that God, if Robin Williams was alive, because he was tapped. He actually tried to do the original voiceover for
Oh, is that
Howard the Duck.
right?
Yeah, but but they already had the animatronic shot for Howard, and it was very robotic, his talking, and it wasn't like the genie where he could just go in a booth and do what Robin does and just go free flow. It was very limited to the script, and he was like, I can't riff. I'm not doing this. So they had to bring the other guy in to do it. But man, if they were to remake Howard the Duck, and that's it's those times like that where you really feel the sting of somebody not being here, where they, like when we were talking about Philip Seymour Hoffman, like when roles come up and you're just like, they would have absolutely made this movie so much better.
Right.
So I mean, I guess
if I was to remake Howard the Duck, I would make it grittier. I would make it darker.
I think I think that's the big dilemma with the original, is that there was like a push and pull between the creatives and the suits, where some people wanted to go dark with it and pay honor to the comics, while the suits wanted to make sure they were able to sell toys. And then so we got this weird hybrid of sex jokes.
He smoked cigarettes. You can't fucking sell toys of a duck that smokes cigarettes.
Yeah, I think you're right though. I think if they just Deadpooled it and leaned into a hard R,
right.
On fire today.
I'd be excited.
You're on fire.
Yeah, make it a little darker. Make it a little grittier.
Yeah. Two teaming up. Let me ask you this now. Okay, so you already told us your memories from production, but let me ask this before we move on. Is there anything else that you would like to share about the production that you think the fans may want to know? And if you don't have anything, that's fine, but anything you think they may want to know.
Yeah, my life has been blessed. I have had a great life. I mean, I've seen the dark side of it, and I've seen the light side of it. And through it all, there's always been humor. You know, no matter how sick I got, I could still be funny. I mean, I had a psychotic break, and I ended up in the hospital for 2.5 months up in Canada. And they said the only reason they kept me was because of my sense of humor, even though I was like really sick at the time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
When you say a psychotic break, if you don't mind me asking, like what happened?
Well, I'm bipolar. I found out I was bipolar, and once I started treating that and getting that in check, I was able to manage, my drugs. I was able to put them away once we got my mental state stable. Do you know what I mean? And I guess, what was the question again? What the psychotic break was like for you, like what symptoms showed. Okay, I was on tour. I was on tour up in Canada, and the last week I was so insane they wouldn't let me on stage. And then the next day I was supposed to go home, so I'm in the lobby of the hotel waiting for the airport shuttle. And I'm sitting there apparently in my underwear and a t-shirt, and this is like in December. And instead of going to the airport, I went to the hospital. So I basically was completely insane. I didn't know where I was. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know I couldn't figure out why there were so many Canadians. It just baffled me.
Wow, he didn't even know what country.
Were there any like auditory or visual hallucinations happening or anything?
Oh yeah,
like that?
both.
I didn't realize I was diagnosed bipolar 2 when I was 19, and I don't really know what the 2 means. I never looked into it because I don't like reading symptoms, because then I'll start feeling them even if I did it before. But it was only recently that I had a friend pass away, and he was never diagnosed. I thought it was schizophrenia, but I didn't realize until I started researching it more that a lot of the symptoms that show in schizophrenia are also like symptoms of bipolar disorder. I always thought bipolar disorder was just sometimes you're happy, sometimes you're sad. There's no real reason why.
There's no middle ground. You're either up or you're down, but there's no middle.
Yeah.
And now that I'm on the right meds, there's a middle ground. Now I wonder the psych meds, so they've stabled me mentally. I wonder if they've hurt my creativity. And I think that's why a lot of people stop taking their meds. But if I stop taking my meds, I make some really bad decisions.
Yeah,
So,
that's a great point. I know that I struggle with that personally. Like I like the way my brain works as much as it tortures me sometimes. So
right.
that was a big it was a big factor in me deciding or delaying taking medication, because like I don't want to. I know it's broken, but but this is how I'm used to operating. So I'm used to writing. This is like I don't want everything about, and it doesn't change you. It enhances.
Right.
It allows you to actually be yourself. It's crazy.
I actually thought I was just moody, and I was allowed to be moody because I was an artist. You know what I mean? I mean,
that's what I keep telling myself.
Is that what you keep telling yourself?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's a great point though. It's such a it is so crazy, because when you think of, like, I always get tripped up when you start talking about the workings of the brain, because essentially it's our brains talking about itself and thinking about itself, and how is that even possible? And when you're in a situation like that where it's like your brain is troubled and it is for some reason trying to prevent you, putting these ideas in itself to prevent you from making it better, like it is like it's like evolution. Everything wants to survive, even a disease.
Right. Right. But I mean, being by mental illness is no joke, and I'm glad with the Simone Biles coming forth in the Olympics with the mental problems. I thought that shed a lot of light on it. You know what I mean? Because it's no joke. Yeah. And the worst thing is people can't see it. It's like if you break your arm, you get a cast, and everybody goes, "Oh, look, you got a broken arm." But if you break your brain, they still just see you. They don't see, there's no cast on your head that says my brain is broken. Yeah. And then people are afraid of you, and people think it's contagious. I don't know how mental illness can be contagious, but there are people that think it is. And when you talk about it openly, it turns some people off. They shy away from you.
And how badass was she, man? You brought up Simone Biles. She competed, left, took a week off, and came back and got a bronze medal. Now that's fucking awesome. And she said, I think she said, this medal means more to me than any of my gold medals. And that's when I realized how serious it was to her. Right.
I thought when she dropped out of the team finals and they took a silver, I thought hers was more of a participation medal, because she didn't really participate at all. She didn't earn that medal. She had nothing to do with it.
No, that was the other team. That's the team. And like you say, what I think she said this, it's not her quote, but it's okay to not be okay.
Right. It's something like that. She said something that.
Yeah, it's okay to not be okay.
And she got afraid. She had the twisties, they call it.
Inverted. Where up is down and down is up.
So right. And she got lost in the air.
And that's dangerous.
She could have really hurt herself.
Correct.
That's nothing to fool around with.
Because we've talked about mental illness, addiction. So it's kind of became the accidental theme of this interview. I want to make sure that I put information up for people that are watching and they feel inspired to take a step in a right direction. Is there a particular organization or anything that you would recommend for somebody that's wanting to go down the road of recovery?
You just have to do it. You just have to commit to it. You have to go to a lot of meetings. You have to read the literature. You have to get a sponsor. You have to, there's things you need to do to keep everything in check. And it's kind of like, I grew up where you were supposed to get your shit together. Right? Get your shit together, man. And what you do is you end up with a bag of shit. You end up with a bag of shit. So what you got to do is take that gunny sack full of shit and cut a hole in it and get rid of it. So you're not carrying it around anymore, and you can be a little lighter in the load you're carrying. So you take
Fertilize
care
the
of-
trail.
Right. And what you do is you make amends to your past, and you forgive yourself for the things you did, which probably weren't all that, what's the word I'm looking for?
Becoming.
Things that weren't really proper things to do.
Yeah.
Just bad.
Yeah, some bad things. Like, I had a couple of cups of coffee in jail due to my addictions.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
And that's a scare. I was in a holding cell in Los Angeles, and there's 39 gangbangers and me.
Yeah, that's a whole other topic about nonviolent offenders being put.
We'd be here all day with that. I know that.
Going to jail for a drug sentence could inadvertently become a death sentence because of let's just put all the bad people in one place.
That's
The fact that people that are struggling with addiction are even considered bad is
I always found unusual was that marijuana was considered a Class A narcotic. I thought that was the dumbest thing ever by the United States.
But go take that hydrocodone though.
Right.
All right. So let me ask you this, Steven. First and foremost, and like I said, we're wrapping up. We want to thank you for coming on and taking the time out and not finding it robbery. Let me ask you this. If for our audience, is there anything out or coming out that you can speak about that you'd like audiences to know about, anything whatsoever?
There's nothing in the near future. I'm hoping to be back on stage by the fall, and look for me in your local comedy club.
I'll be looking.
Yeah,
I can't wait. And I love what you said earlier. We're going to make sure we emphasize that part where you say, listen, you are what you are as a comedian. You're not going to just Zoom it. You want that live reaction. And I think, like I said, that's where you want to be at. I can't wait to see it.
And the other thing I learned was, sometimes you're playing say you're playing a 200-seat room and 199 people are laughing and one person is just a sourpuss. And in the early days, I would sacrifice the 199 to make that one person laugh. And as I got experience, it was like, fuck them. 199 are laughing. I'm going to stay with them. They're having a good time.
Awesome. We just had that conversation yesterday because somebody posted a comment that we took as an insult on Reddit to one of our last episodes. And like of all the praise we get, all the guests we talk to, is that we love talking to you, people that watch, we love it. But that we got so hyper fixated on this one that didn't even turn out to be an insult. They were just referencing a movie that we didn't understand. We took it as an insult.
What did I tell you? I said, no, let's go watch their show. And then that was the end of the conversation because they have no show.
It was about to become my goal is to we're going to win that person over. But the whole rest of this season is going to be dedicated to making sure that person likes what we're doing. It's so crazy.
And what are you going to do? Sacrifice the rest of your audience for that one person? That's absurd.
Exactly.
Don't do it.
I
am known for my absurd decisions.
Gotcha. Aren't we all?
Yeah.
Before we let you go, before we say goodbye, do you have either a parting words, poem, favorite joke, or anything that you'd like to leave the audience with whatsoever?
I guess my favorite joke is two Jews walk into a bar and they buy it.
Quick and to the point. Those are my favorite.
Hold on.
Right, but I'm bummed.
Steven, man, I can't thank you enough. It was a pleasure. And let's keep in touch. Like I say, we'll find you on social media. I know he has your information. I'll make sure I follow up with you. And as soon as we're done with this, we're going to message you the link to the show. So kick up your feet. You're going to enjoy it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you guys. I really had a good time.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Take care. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye-bye.